focus. Unions react to the signing of the wage deal. We unpack the details. I'm joined by Cosatu Chief Negotiator Mugwena Maluleke, as well as the South African Police Union National Chief Negotiator Lesiba Thobakgale. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for your time. Lesiba, let's start with you. You did not sign this deal. However, of course, the DG saying it's tradition that if the majority signs, it is binding on you. There's no hard feelings. You just have to accept what the rest have accepted.
Butabo, as the South African Policing Union, we will never sell our souls or sell our members on stomach politics, meaning that employer has played our members to an extent whereby they feel that they are hungry and then they have to accept anything that comes on the table. We strongly feel that the government, as we placed our demand in terms of the cost of living adjustment, which was 4% plus CPI, that is what we have demanded. And we view that the majority, signatures that made PSCPC Resolution 1 of 2021, that they did not indeed apply their mind correctly, as they say that they were mandated by their members for them to attach their signatures. We accept that the majority of the unions have signed. That is fine. But the principle behind is that what is it that they have signed? What implications the collective agreement has on our members? Because Butabo, the cash gratuity or the cash bonus, it is not going to assist our members with anything. Then, there might be an excitement that has been caused now as we look, members thinking that they will be receiving something. But at a later stage, because this is not a salary increase, they will start feeling the pinch. And unfortunately, they were not clearly advised to say, what are the implications of this collective agreement? So as SAPU, we stand on a principle that indeed this was not a collective agreement. We strongly believe that the unions that we are with at the PSCBC, they should have waited together with us in order to put pressure on the employer up until the 21 days that are prescribed in terms of the PSCBC constitution comes to pass, so that employer can come and renegotiate. Because what is there on the table? As we touch even the 1.5%, we don't even want to touch that one with TAP, because that is not an increment at all. 1.5%, it is a pay progression that has been guaranteed even previously in terms of PSCBC Resolution 1 of 2018.
Yeah. What are the implications then for you that the majority have accepted? I mean, the DG say, well, the majority recognized the economic crisis and situation that we are in, and they certainly believe that we are in a financial crisis, and there is just no amount of money that is available to be able to fund that 4%.
Butabo, we acknowledge, the issue of majority, because we work at the PSCBC, we work on vote weights, where for it to become an agreement, it has to enjoy the majority signature, which is determined by 50 plus 1. And that has happened. But the question that we have, or issues that we really have a problem with, is that suddenly, government has been crying during the wage negotiations that they do not have money. But when they have to come out with what the President of the Republic of South Africa has declared, in his address on Sunday, in terms of the reliefs that are there. So suddenly, without going anywhere, there is an amount of money that is made available in order, to assist those who are unemployed. But when it comes to public servants who are out there, we speak of police officials who did not receive COVID-19 allowance, whom, as we speak today, we've got over 700 deaths of our police officials, as they are the ones who are enforcing those regulations since the lockdown has started. So we are saying that government is not truthful in terms of them saying that they do not have money. When we look at the frivolous cases that they have, where when members are on suspension, they keep them for long, and some, when they are dismissed, they come back, and they take those matters from arbitration, they refer them further to the labor court in order to frustrate members. They pay a whole lot of money in terms of that. Not even speaking to the corruption that is so thrive within our country that we have seen, during this COVID-19 period, where money was indeed utilized for things that it was not supposed to. But when public servants need to be paid their salary increase, government comes and play poverty, and other unions, they go and agree with government. As SAPU, we stand on a principle to say we acknowledge the majority, that majority has signed. But Butabo, implications are that our members in the long run, they are going to suffer because of the result of this agreement, because indeed it is not going to relieve anything. And one cannot say because they are hungry and sell their houses and sell everything because they are hungry, they want to get food at that time. So that is not a principle that we believe in. The struggle has not come cheap. Each and every struggle, there should be blood and sweat. And we are saying that to our members out there, that we need to keep strong and ensure that we stand for the good principle for government to come on the table.
Lesiba, I'm going to come back to you in a moment, and I want you to give me that analysis as to why you're saying the public servants will suffer in the long run as a result of this agreement. But Mugwena, it must come down like a ton of bricks to hear someone say you were thinking with your stomach when you signed this, and it was the politics of the stomach that really made you agree to this. And if I look at when you signed, you probably signed, I wouldn't be accurate, but quite earlier than the rest that have signed.
Good evening, Thabo and Lesiba, my homeboy. Look, for me, when you apply, the English word of saying that people did not apply their minds, it is that basically you are saying that they may not have unions at the end of the day, and therefore there's only maybe 1 or 2 unions where they're supposed to be deciding for the others, instead of acknowledging that when you sign on the basis of your members having said that you have explained to them and they understood and so forth. So I can take you through and say it would not be correct to say that members have not been explained to. You will not be, in a 260,000 members of SADU, you will not be able to certify everyone. That's why majoritarianism is a principle that the unions use all the time, even within their own structures. And then when the majority has decided, clearly it is that you will always explain to the minority that there is a decision, and that particular decision is taken on a basis of democratic centralism, because you have been given an opportunity to discuss and express your opinion, however the majority have understood. And what did they understand in terms of this particular agreement? One is that you sitting with the members who did not get their increases in 2020. The unions went to court as respondents, some of us, and others went there as applicants. And we lost the appeal at the Labor Appeal Court. And we were saying to our members, it is not about the stomach issue. It is about realizing the condition under which they live. Okay, under the sacrifices that they are making as a result of the economic situation that is facing our country. The teachers and the police and the nurses are the only people in this country, and the other public servants who have a stable employment today. Okay, majority of our people have lost their jobs. Some have taken salary cuts, and therefore they rely on them, and they have now increased the burden on these public servants who are now having to feed more mouth in order to make sure that we have got a stable country at the end of the day. And understanding that particular situation, the members then took a decision on their own, and having understood the economic situation, but also understanding that it is not an agreement that is based on a carry-through effect. Okay, and a carry-through effect is a baseline agreement. It is an agreement where you are saying, for now, we can relieve you of the burden that you have. And therefore, whilst we'll then be able to negotiate moving forward to ensure that we address the other issues. Secondly, that we give you a relief now in order for us, again, as the unions, we agreed that we are going to proceed to challenge the Resolution 1 of 2018 at the level of the Constitutional Court. So you did not abandon that. So it is about the material condition obtaining Thabo. And we have been taught in terms of really using the material condition to determine the way forward in terms of solution. You don't use the theory outside the material condition and believe that because you can then able to articulate the theory, therefore you are right. Sometimes it's fine to articulate the theory in terms of populism. Sometimes it's fine to articulate the theory in terms of demagoguery. But the issue is, at the end of the day, the material condition in this particular country is that we have analyzed the budget. We have subjected a research, and the research told us from 2018 that we are going to have a problem moving forward.
Don't you think, Mugwena, that you have inadvertently, maybe even not inadvertently, maybe you did think about it consciously, and your members did think about it consciously, that you have, in a sense, entered into this wage freeze that the finance minister has been talking about? Talking to the DG, she's saying, well, if, for example, next year comes about and you don't reach an agreement, the current agreement prevails.
We have not agreed to anything that is a wage freeze. A wage freeze would have meant that it is nothing that is coming to the workers, okay? Then nothing that comes to the workers. Is it the first time that it happens? Yes, it's the first time that it happens. You know why? Because conditions that we have got to analyze tells you that more is coming. And therefore, the unions must prepare themselves to be united when they go to the next round of negotiations, and not pull out of the negotiation and begin to understand that when they've pulled out and the others remaining there and pushing the employer, you have to make sure that you engage each other there in the negotiation. So when you pull out, you must tell the others to say, look, let's pull out so that we then employ a particular tactic at the end of the day. So when you agreed to this particular thing of say, if in the absence of a collective agreement, this particular arrangement will continue next year, it is in view of the fact that you needed some clarity but obviously certainty in terms of the situation in the country. That's why we want to start early, so that because it's a conditional agreement, then you are then able to enter into an agreement based on the baseline for 2022. And that's why we want to start the negotiation as quick as possible so that we are then able to arrive at a...
All right, back with you, getting reaction to the public sector wage agreement tonight. Cosatu's chief negotiator, Mugwena Maluleke, and the South African Police Union National Chief Negotiator, Lesiba Thobakgale. Lesiba, you walked out of the negotiations before this point?
Yes, we did, Thabo. You know, before we enter into substantive negotiations, we have a procedure that we call the pre-wage negotiations. And during the pre-wage negotiations, we were united, meaning that we had all these reasons that we mentioned as SAPU to say government, they really can ensure that they have money. Indeed, they do have money. We looked at places where they can ensure that they have money. And we were so sure that when we are pushing this position to say our demands are CPI plus 4%, it was based on the research that we did, and we have found that indeed government will be able to honor the agreement. And further to that, Thabo, we are dealing with a government that declared a clause within that PSCBC resolution 1 of 2018 to say it is illegal. That landed us at the Labour Appeals Court, and now we are going to be facing a government as well at the Constitutional Court. So now looking at the conclusion of this agreement or the signing of this agreement to say that how do you now trust the very same government that last year said that this clause that meant to give salary increment to the workers, say that no, that clause is illegal, they are walking away from the same agreement. What is it that public servants supposed to do when the government does the same thing to the very same agreement? Because when you look at clause 3.3, it gives government a leeway to say for the coming 3 to 5 years, they may just say, okay, because there's no agreement, you know what, status quo remains. There is nothing that we are going to implement. That is the risk that our members are facing out there. And looking into the facts,
what do you make, before getting to that, the facts that Mugwena is raising? One, protect the stability of employment. Two, assessed based on the conditions that are prevailing. Right? It's obvious to everyone that we are in a crisis, not just South Africa, I suppose the entire world over, but our economic situation is probably even worse, because even before we got to this point, our economy was not growing. And therefore, you say, in order to provide some interim relief, let's take the 1.5%. It is not a carry-through arrangement. We'll still need to come in early in September and then negotiate what will be on the baseline.
Butabo, not with this government of ours in our country, because the public servants at all times, they are being utilized as a scapegoat. Whenever there are any issues that are economic, public servants are the ones who are taking the brunt. And as an organization, we are saying that it is about time that government takes public servants seriously, because they are rendering this service. They're not doing it for free. And as they are rendering this service, they also contribute to what's paying tax. So all these conditions that are there, that we find ourselves, the economic conditions, be it because of COVID-19, the impacts it has. Government, even before COVID-19 came into our shores, that intention was there. The Minister of Finance pronounced himself to say, you know what, there's going to be a wage freeze, as you alluded to it earlier. That was even before COVID-19 came. So this intention was there even from the beginning. But who suffers at the end of the day? It's public servants who are taking the brunt. Yeah. Up until when will government take the issues that relates to public servants seriously? Because public servants, they are always out there ensuring that they are rendering services to our communities who need these services. And as such, they need to be paid in accordance.
Yeah. Your analysis as to why you're saying this agreement will have long-term effects on the employees?
Butabo, our analysis is that the cash bonus, it is just a cash bonus. It is subjected to tax. It doesn't even go towards your pension. It is non-pensionable, meaning that also employer is not contributing a specific percentage if like they do when it is a salary increment. And as well, it doesn't even increase the notch of our members, meaning that they will only rely on the pay progression for their salary notches to go high. And when we look at it after tax, depending on the tax bracket that our members are on, you know, our members will end up getting peanuts. And when we look at the expenses of medical aid has went up. When we look at medical aid, it went up. Funeral policies went up. Food has went up. When we look at petrol, when we look at electricity, all those costs, our members are still going to suffer in a long time, when they thought that, you know what, there is something that we have received, but only to realize that, you know what, what has been placed on our table, indeed, it is not even assisting us in any way.
All right, let's get Mugwena to respond to that. Mugwena, you agree what's being placed on the table is just peanuts? And if you look at the fact that it's not pensionable, it won't be deducted for pension, it doesn't increase the notch, it's going to be taxed, and after tax, and you still have to pay medical aid, and you have to pay funeral policies, and so the costs have just skyrocketed through the roof. This won't even begin to touch base.
Well, let me respond this way. When we explain to our members, we put all these things to them. First, we went back to them and said the employer is offering 978, and that 978 is going to be taxed. Our members said, go back. Go and now fight to making sure that you have got a quantum that is not less than 1,000 rands after tax in terms of the cash bonus or cash gratuity that will be paid to each and every one, but also to maintain the pay progression so that then you are able to improve your notch by at least 1.5% that was there, and making sure that it is not being taken away. Because the employer wanted to take the bonuses, the employer wanted to take all the allowances. We had to fight. And when we were sitting in the facilitation, first and foremost was to make sure that we are able to maintain the collective agreements that ordinary were taken away, because the government was saying there is no money for anything. So it's not going to be allowance, there's going to be nothing. And we had to fight first to make sure that we are able to retain those. Yeah. Then after that, we had to fight for additional money. So when we say it's peanuts and so forth, it's the language is fine. We can use any other language ourselves. Our members said that is not satisfactory. We agree it is not what we had demanded. It's not what we would have loved to have. But under the circumstances, we are taking into cognizance the fact that we're within a pandemic. We can see how many people are dying in our country, and we are offering that particular essential services and critical services in our country.
But don't you think government was taking you for a ride? I mean, you say you had to fight even for the 1.5%, right? And they now all of a sudden are saying, well, we'll get 22 million. We're not even going to have to borrow that money. We'll reprioritize it and get it somewhere. And were they pulling a fast one on you? They had the 22 billion all along. They just didn't want to give it to you.
No, we are going to feel the pinch. And every one of us, we in education are already feeling it. Okay? We are already feeling the prioritization, because already Gauteng only in education has to take 6 billion back to Treasury in order to fund this particular thing. Yeah. What's going to happen to the schools that have been vandalized? So we will feel it. It's a reality. It's what we are talking about, the material condition. KwaZulu-Natal has been asked to take back 4.7 billion. And so forth. Limpopo has been asked to take about 2.9 billion back to Treasury in order to fund this particular thing, so that because government did not have it in the budget, okay? And we had to fight for all these particular things. But maintaining the collective agreement is a way of saying you cannot undermine collective bargaining. We cannot allow that. And we agree with this. We must not allow collective agreement bargaining to be undermined. Hence, we are together in the Constitutional Court to fight against undermining of collective bargaining, because we believe, freedom of association is very fundamental and it encompasses collective bargaining. If you allow it to be undermined, then there's going to be a problem. However, there are going to be changes, not only in South Africa. Many other countries are going to find themselves having to bring these particular changes. And it is where we're supposed to be, working together rather than to be working against each other as the unions, moving forward to then say, how do we ensure that we protect collective bargaining, but obviously looking at what the material conditions are dictating to us, because that is what is very critical for us moving forward. So, Butabamina, I can say to you, it's not, we never said this is the best agreement. We have said it is not what we would have loved to have. It is not what satisfies everybody. However, given all the things that were put on the table and what we can see, it is that give the people a relief so that they are then able to deal with their burdens, deal with their own problems that they're having, so that you give us space to go and negotiate again. Because if we keep being in the chamber and not finishing the collective the agreement, we will not be able to go and do more state work in order to ensure that we are then able to address all this corruption that is in the country that is taking money, that we are not going to be able to deal with lack of leadership and decisiveness that we can see in this country when we are supposed to deal with issues of corruption and all of these things, and mismanagement of funds. Those are the things that we must be united as the people and deal with them. But I can tell you, if we don't get to be united, this is what we're going to be seeing, because we'll be accusing this one, you have taken, you have sold out, and all those. There's no selling out. There's no selling out of anybody. You decide on the basis of your own structure. You decide on the basis of the members behind you. If they are behind you and they understand, and you show them the reasons and you show them the economic situation in their country and what that which they are going to get can be able to bring some relief to them. For example, we have done our own calculation in terms of tax, because we always do that. And we are saying the people on the lower ranks are the ones that are benefiting more than our principals who are at level 11 and level 12. And they understand, because the principal have always said that we need a sliding scale in order to close the wage gap. And they understand that they'll get less on the basis that they have got to make sure that they pledge solidarity with those that are at the lower levels of level 1 up to level 5. So that is the spirit of solidarity, and that is the spirit of unionism, because you always have to think about everybody in this particular family.
Lesiba, a quick one. I am really out of time, but I just want to give you 30 seconds really briefly. Just give me your last thought on the question, particularly of the reprioritization being already felt.
And it comes from the chieftaincy, so I cannot pay tax when I go home.
No, Butabo,
yeah.
You know, from our side, we, as SAPU, we further wish to state that the issue of majority has made a lot of people to suffer, and it has proven in this case. And tables change from time and again, because those who are minority, anytime they can become majority. And as SAPU, we would go out there, Butabo, to ensure that we petition, you know, within the 1.2 million of the public servants to really check that indeed they have given the mandate, you know, to say that collective agreement should be concluded. Because as we see, we don't want to see public servants and mostly our members suffering at the hands of those unions that others have their trust on them not executing in accordance.
Lesiba, we're out of time. I appreciate your time, and thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us today. Cosatu's Chief Negotiator, Mugwena Maluleke, and the South African Police Union National Chief Negotiator, Lesiba Thobakgale.